Anyway, it's great. Well, we're doing Parenthood. This is week 3. We're going to talk about discipline this week. And whenever Karen and I had our first child, we actually did this very, very well because we were 2-on-1. And it worked out great. We were just on top of everything with our kids. And then whenever we had 2 of them, we kind of went to man. All right, and we were still pretty good at that. We could cover it. One of them was a little bigger, one was a little smaller, so we could handle that. Then when we had 3, okay, we went to zone coverage. And that's a little bit difficult. And for whatever reason, when that 3rd one comes around, man, it becomes a little bit tougher to get the thing going and get it working the way it's supposed to. But we're going to talk about discipline this morning. This is actually a pretty controversial subject, and just to kind of tell you a funny story about that. Whenever I was a youth pastor a few years back, I remember we were getting ready to start a program with our youth. It was a discipleship program. You know what discipleship is? That's whenever a disciple is somebody who follows Jesus. Okay, so when you study the Bible and you go through a program, and they could get awards for how much they did. And I sent this note to the parents. I said, we're going to do a discipleship program. It's going to be great, just to get them all excited about it. And I don't know if Karen remembers this, but there was one little boy that came, and he was a really neat little kid. He was probably 8th grade, 7th grade, something like that. And keep in mind, we were living in East Texas, okay, far East Texas. And this little boy, he lived out in the woods, okay. And the woods in East Texas is tall pine trees, all right. And this is the backwoods. And I remember this little boy. I got a note back from his mother, and she said, concerning the discipleship program, and she said, I do not believe that is your responsibility to do that. That is the parent's responsibility. And I never saw that kid again. And for years I thought, man, what in the world happened? Discipleship. And it dawned on me one day, she thought I meant a discipline program, not a discipleship program, and she mixed it. Well, that was East Texas, okay? So in East Texas, Arkansas, you could expect for that kind of mistake to happen like that. But I thought that was hilarious. But it highlights the fact, man, this is a really, really controversial subject, and a lot of people have different understandings. And whenever you talk about it, man, you can just see people kind of bow up and they kind of shoot back, depending on how they feel. But it is really an important and wonderful topic, and I want to define it right here. So take your notes and fill this in. When we talk about disciplining our children as parents, this is what it is. We're saying discipline is correction. You can fill this in. It's correction driven by love. It's correction driven by love. Look at Hebrews 12, verse 5. It says this, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves." Now, how many of you from the Lord have felt like you've gotten a little bit of a spanking from the Lord every now and then? Now, he doesn't do that because he dislikes you. He does that because he loves you, and he cares about you in the same way it is with parents. Look at Proverbs 19 and 18. It says this, "Discipline your son, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to his death." Now that sounds pretty harsh. And that really brings it to the forefront. We're going to kind of get into that a little bit. But this is what I want you to understand. If you're parents right now, or you will be someday, something you have to understand is that in your home, there is a battle for control. And you as the parents must win that battle. You have to win it. It is paramount. It is a must. And if there is nagging in your home, if there is yelling, if there is bribing, come on, just do this, come on, just do this, there's bribing, then there's a good chance that you may be losing that battle for control. And that tide has to turn immediately. You've got to change that around. Now, we had a really interesting thing happen this week at the Fortner home. And we've got some other real good news that another couple in our church, Charlie and Tiffany, had their baby this past Monday, a little girl named Maylee. And she was here last Sunday. If you saw her, she was pretty uncomfortable. Well, that's because later just a few hours, she was about to give birth to that child. And so we got the word that Maylee was born. And it just so happened that the way we decided to do it, we didn't want to take our kids over to see the baby because, the kids around, young kids around a baby, that's not a good thing. So Karen went over to the hospital to go see him. I was watching the kids. Then Karen was going to come back, and I was going to go right over there. Well, we had a little situation with our daughter to where Karis is going through this phase where she is starting to get acquainted with her sin nature. And she is starting to realize that she has a will. And that she can, now, and she's very young, she's almost 4 years old, but she has learned that, you know what, I can control. And I will, and I will try to do that. And we had a little situation, I had a little situation with Karis where she and me were kind of coming like this at each other. And it was so funny because Karen was over looking at the baby, and here I was with our little girl. Karen was looking at the new little girl. Here I was with our 4-year-old little girl, and we were having a little battle of the will. And I remember thinking at this time, okay, I love this girl, I will win. And I don't mean that in like a sporting kind of thing. I mean that in a way because I love her, I will win, and I know that this is the way that it needs to be in this home. And for her safety and her security, I will make sure that she understands that it is important to obey her daddy. And so we had this little thing, and it took a little while for me and Karis to get it worked out. And we got it worked out, and it was hilarious because here I was, and I mean, I was sweating. I mean, she was throwing a fit, she was convulsing. I mean, it was wild, and I was just like, Karis, no, I'm not going to give in. And she was doing her best to say, I'm going to win this battle. I'm going to get control of my daddy. No, Karis, I'm your daddy. No, you're not going to. And so finally she finally calmed down. We got it done. It was great. Went to bed. Good night, Daddy. I love you. It was all over with. But man, it took about 45 minutes. And so by the time I got over to see little Melee, I was like all sweating. I went in the room. I'm like, hey, where's that little baby? You know? And then I got to hold this little baby, and I thought, oh, you guys don't even know what you got. You know, they're like, oh, she's perfect. She's beautiful. She's wrapped in this little frou-frou pink blanket, you know, and you know, they're just happy. She's the perfect baby. And I just thought, oh, you guys are awesome. It's like, you got it coming. But anyway, it was kind of neat. I had the, you know, kind of the, you know, juxtaposition of the little girls there. But there is a battle that you must win. Now, here's something that to help you kind of understand this right here. Okay? Fill this in your notes there. Discipline is not something you do to your child, but something you do for your child. There's a huge, huge difference in that. And here's a quote by Zig Ziglar. He's a guy out of Dallas. He's a motivational speaker. He's written a lot of books. He's a Christian as well. He said this: a child who has not been disciplined with love in his little world will be disciplined without love by the great big world. And I think that's a great way to look at it as your home. And this is the reason why this series is so important. Is your home, basically, while those children are under your charge and while they're there, you've got a few years where you can shape them and you can get them to the point where they can go out there and they can be a person of God. And they can go for it. And so it's very, very important that at that time that you do everything that you possibly can to follow what God says and do it His way, so that they can when they go out there, they can run and they can be without pain and without hurt as much as possible. Now there's pain and hurt out there, but if they can get it right here and they can understand it, they can understand what the world is like, and they can see what right is, they can see what wrong is, they can make the right decision, and they won't wind up like some of the people that I saw at the game last night that were trying to pick fights with each other. Okay? It's very, very important. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on us, we're going to focus on the parents and say, hey, what do we got to do to help this thing out? What do we got to do to make this thing right? Okay?